Welcome to Mother Daughter Projects. I'm Steph.
I'm Vicki.
And come join Mom as she makes these really cool Halloween epoxy trays.
I'm using the rectangular charcuterie silicone mold from Total Boat, as well as Dawn Power Wash, spray paint, stamping ink, and Total Boat Tabletop Epoxy, and an assortment of googly eyes. First, I headed outside. I'm giving this board an interesting first layer by starting with a spray of Dawn Power Wash. Keep the bottle a good 12 to 18 inches above the project and spray lightly. You're going for small bubbles. Next, spray paint directly over the Dawn. While outside, I'm preparing a second charcuterie board, but using the round version from Total Boat. I wanted a heavier coating of Dawn, so I'm spraying it more directly. The round board gets a full coating of orange spray paint. After waiting 20 minutes for the paint to dry, I took the boards inside and rinsed them off. You can either let it dry naturally or gently pat dry with a paper towel. The paint will pull up if you're too aggressive with the drying. The Total Boat Tabletop Epoxy is mixed in a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm mixing up 8 ounces to start, although this mold will eventually need close to 14 ounces total. Mix according to the package instructions. By the way, I have on full protective gear, the garage is open with fans on, and an air filtration machine is running. Be safe when using epoxy. Once the epoxy has been mixed, it's time to pour. I gently lifted the mold to move the epoxy into all areas of the mold. After a few minutes to let it settle out, I hit the air bubbles with a hot heat gun. Move quickly and don't linger in any one place or you'll burn your epoxy. Now for the fun part, adding googly eyes. I started with the largest eyes, placing them in pairs throughout the mold. Then I moved on to the next size, pressing them gently down into the epoxy. I had a pair of plastic tweezers that helped with the placement of the smaller ones. The tiny ones go in next. A toothpick works well to sink these. I set that one aside and mixed up some epoxy for the round board. This one is getting the full 12 ounces that it will hold. I'm using Total Boat Maker Epoxy and trying the 2-cup mixing method as suggested on the label instructions. After stirring individually, parts A and part B get dumped into a larger cup and mixed according to instructions. After mixing, I poured a small amount into a cup and mixed in some orange alcohol ink to try something later. Then I poured the remaining epoxy into the round mold. I also got out some orange glitter to use. I'm using a brush to lightly add the glitter to the epoxy as I don't want clumps of it. And then I added the tinted epoxy. I cleaned up the mold edge with a silicone tip tool. Fingers crossed that this stays just like this. 10 minutes later, I returned to find the glitter and darker epoxy had drifted. Time for a design detour, or plan B. I decided to draw a stir stick through the epoxy and then make some waves in the opposite direction. Until the epoxy has thickened, the design will continue to drift. So every 10 minutes, I check back to redo the design and hit it with a heat gun if necessary. Okay, it's thick enough, the design is staying put. Now on to layer 2 on the rectangular mold. I mixed up some epoxy and poured it over the eyes. Those large eyes were almost too tall for the mold, so I had to add extra epoxy to cover them. So many bubbles, but the heat gun makes them disappear easily. Now for the spooky part. I'm using this stamping ink that I think works better for this than alcohol ink. A little goes a long ways, so don't be heavy-handed. I added a few random drops of the ink near but not over the eyes and swirled with a toothpick, trying to keep the ink from settling right above the eyes. "24 hours later, it's time to unmold. Those creepy eyes move, and the bottom where the Dawn was sprayed is transparent. I used alcohol to remove the last bit of paint on the mold. It comes off really easily. And then I took it inside and washed it and let it dry. The orange charcuterie board is ready to unmold. Start with the top as that part can be tricky to loosen. If you've overfilled your mold, you may have to open up the hole again. So pretty. It's transparent as well. This one is good for all of fall into Thanksgiving. That glitter just sparkles when it catches the light. The googly eyes will be an unexpected surprise for your Halloween guest. Yeah, those eyes do move.
Trick or treat! What we learned. I use two different kinds of Total Boat Epoxy. I use a tabletop, which I use all the time, and this is the first time trying the Maker Epoxy. And frankly, I really didn't notice any difference in using the two. The one thing I will say is that Maker Epoxy comes in smaller amounts, so if you're only doing a small project, that is perfect to get, so it's a lot less to have on hand, and it's really easy to use.
Now those silicone charcuterie boards, we actually bought those from Total Boat, and they are great for making all sorts of trays, but you do want to store those inside with a project inside of them so they retain their shape. And you want to store your epoxy inside too, because all the varying conditions in the garage are not conducive for those kind of products, so keep them inside.
Now I use a variety of sizes of those googly eyes, and those big ones cause a little bit of a problem. They do tend to float, and I have to keep pushing them down, and those big ones really need to be really attached to the bottom. And I think next time I'm going to use a little school glue just to stick them down temporarily. I did get them to cover finally, and there's a little bumpiness, but I actually kind of like that little bumpiness, so I would totally use those big eyeballs again.
Now there's a lot of uses for these trays. You could obviously use it to hand out candy on Halloween. You could also use it for a party, for a charcuterie board, because once epoxy's fully cured, it is food grade. And you could also display them, because it's a great way of displaying stuff for the holidays.
I used a stamping ink rather than an alcohol ink to make that kind of black webby stuff, and I really like the way that moves, so that's why I used that instead of an alcohol ink.
If you want to see more tray ideas, you can check out this project right over here. And if you want to see more projects from us, be sure to visit us at motherdaughterprojects.com. You'll find videos, written tutorials, and links to all the products that we use in our projects. All right, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a spooky Halloween.
Ooh, yeah.
Or fun. Fun and spooky.
I like your hat.
Oh, I like yours too.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
It is fascinating. So as your Halloween costume, you're a lady who likes to go to tea?
Yeah, this is my tea hat actually. I do love a good tea party, and my favorite place to have a tea party is on a kayak. If that sounds strange to you, I'll put a link below so you can see
It's not so strange. It's not.
my kayaking tea party.